The United States National Park System has received a record-breaking number of visitors in the last few years. While quarantining through the pandemic, many turned to the outdoors as a means of escape. Tragically, this increase in the number of visitors will likely mean an increase in the number of those who go missing. Unfortunately, there is no central database to track missing persons cases in our national park systems. Caught in jurisdictional limbo, it can be difficult to keep authorities focused on the return of those who have vanished. It's estimated that over 1,600 people have gone missing in our national parks and remain so. David Paulides, a former law enforcement officer and investigative journalist, began to compile information on these disappearances. He identified a series of uncanny commonalities among those who have gone missing. This would later develop into the Missing 411 profile. For those interested in a complete history of Paulides, the Missing 411, and potential theories, a link to the first video in this series can be found in the description below. The following disappearances occurred in 2021. Kim Crumbo, Mark O'Neill, Joel Thomazin, and Duane Miles. This is Missing 411 National Park Disappearances, Volume 4. Mark O'Neill and Kim Crumbo were half-brothers who traveled to Yellowstone National Park in September 2021. They had planned a 4-night backcountry excursion to Shoshone Lake, the second largest lake in Yellowstone. When they didn't return as planned, a family member reported them missing on Sunday, September 19th. Crumbo, age 74, was from Ogden, Utah. He was a former Navy SEAL, and he had retired after 2 decades working for the National Park Service. He had worked as a river ranger, park ranger, and wilderness coordinator in Grand Canyon National Park. He had worked as an environmental activist, even into his retirement. He was a board member with the Rewilding Institute and a professional river guide. He was a trained and capable outdoorsman. There are surprisingly few details released about O'Neill. He was 67 and from Chimacum, Washington. He was also a retired National Park Service ranger. On the day the men were reported missing, Yellowstone received its first major snowstorm. In the aftermath, authorities located a vacant campsite and abandoned gear on the south side of the Shoshone Lake. Additionally, they discovered canoes, paddles, and personal flotation devices, along with personal effects on the east shore of the lake. On Monday, September 20th, the body of Mark O'Neill was located. The area is prone to high winds, and the average water temperature is 48 degrees Fahrenheit. One Park Service ranger estimated the survival time is only 20 to 30 minutes at this temperature. An autopsy later determined that O'Neill had succumbed to exposure and was overtaken by hypothermia. However, Crumbo remains missing. Interagency search and rescue teams continue to search. They swept all trails in the area and boats combed the entire shoreline of the lake, gridding the water by helicopter. The Submerged Research Center utilized sonar equipment to search for clues in the water. Canine teams from Western Montana search dogs continued to search for Crumbo even as the rescue mission transitioned into a recovery mission on September 24th. Crumbo and O'Neill were both knowledgeable outdoorsmen with decades of experience. They were familiar with and capable of meeting the demands necessary for long hiking and canoeing trips. The year's first snowstorm hit the area as search efforts were just beginning to mobilize. The half-brothers disappeared near the large Shoshone Lake. A full loop around this lake runs over 23 miles. Search and rescue teams found no trails leading away from the shoreline where O'Neill was found, and search and rescue canine units uncovered no scent. Joel Thomazin is a 31-year-old from Denair, California. He was employed by the U.S. Army Reserve, and he was an experienced outdoorsman visiting the Yosemite National Park for a solo hike on September 6th. He planned to travel to hike from Hetch Hetchy to Lake Eleanor, a reservoir in the northwestern corner of the park. He planned to return on September 9th. Thomazin was familiar with Yosemite. He grew up in the area, and he hiked the park since he was a child. His coworkers and wife describe him as a planner, someone who's responsible and prepared. He was declared missing on September 11th by his wife, Amanda. The last reported sighting was on a trail near Hetch Hetchy. Over 11 agencies have participated in the search and rescue efforts for Thomazin, but no clues have been uncovered. Searches have been conducted by foot, boat, canine teams, and helicopter. This image depicts the routes taken by search and rescue teams. However, it's almost as if Thomazin has vanished. Park Service rangers have requested that hikers who traveled the Miguel Meadow, Lake Eleanor, or Hetch Hetchy areas during this time to share any information they may have. Hikers have been instructed to keep an eye out for Thomazin or any unattended gear. Thomazin is 5'10" with brown hair buzzed short. He was traveling with a yellow and gray backpack, sleeping bag, red inflatable kayak, and hammock. His wife has asked for prayers for her husband's safe return. Thomazin was intelligent, with 2 college degrees and extensive knowledge of the outdoors. Thomazin was young, a practiced hiker and canoeer, and he maintained his physical fitness as an Army reservist. This area in Yosemite is a geographical cluster with other recent nearby disappearances. In the summer months, solo hikers Fred Zalakar and James Youngblom disappeared from the area. More recently, Richard Judd, 69 years old, was hiking with a companion between the Low Merced Pass Lake and Red Peak Pass. He was separated from his companion during the hike, and he seemingly vanished from the area. Search and rescue efforts were extensive. However, only a day pack was discovered. Rangers are investigating, but they have released no further information. The Hetch Hetchy Reservoir and Water System was Thomazin's main destination, as he was looking for a place to canoe. Search and rescue teams have failed to find any trace of Thomazin, and canine units have been incapable of discovering a scent. Duane Miles, age 78, was an avid hiker and outdoorsman from Beaver, Washington. He was reported missing after he failed to return from a day hike at the Graves Creek area of the Olympic National Park. Miles had extensive experience in the outdoors, and he often traveled in the park alone. He preferred off-trail hikes, as he often went out to look for shed elk antlers. He informed his friends that he intended to take an off-trail route south of the Graves Creek campground, exiting near the Graves Creek Corral. He was reported missing on the night of October 23rd, 2021. Search and rescue efforts were mobilized the next day. However, a strong storm moved into the area, thinning search efforts. Miles' vehicle was discovered at the Graves Creek campground by a ranger and friend of Miles. The two continued the search despite the storm. They hiked the 13-mile Enchanted Valley Trail and back, but they saw no sign of Miles. The weather cleared Monday, and search efforts began in earnest. More than a half a dozen search agencies, along with the U.S. Coast Guard, joined the search for Miles. Canine search units combed the area, but they found no scent. Verizon has volunteered to support communication efforts as the search continues. A spokesperson has described the area as difficult to search. It has a dense understory with thick vegetation and uneven, wet terrain. Miles is 5'9" and 185 pounds. He has gray hair and blue eyes. He was last seen wearing black rain pants and a camouflage jacket. Miles was a capable outdoorsman who was comfortable navigating backcountry terrain. He was described as very fit. He was a skilled hiker who frequently traversed the difficult understory of northern Washington parks. He disappeared on a day hike before being reported missing that evening. Countless other hikers have disappeared in the Olympic National Park area, including Chet Hansen, Gil Gilman, John Devine, and more. A strong storm delayed initial search efforts. Search and rescue teams struggled to find any tracks of Miles, and canine units could not find his scent. These cases have few leads and even fewer clues. The missing 411 profile does not solve or explain their cases. It only connects them. If you have information on any of these cases, please contact authorities at the numbers below. For more national park disappearances, please consider the other volumes in this series.